It looks like a tank, it has tracks, and it moves like a tank. It has a cannon and a turret like a tank. It's armored like a tank, and just like a tank, it does not carry infantry. But please don't call it a tank. The US Army dedicated the first of its M10 Booker combat vehicles into service last week. The M10 is named after two US soldiers, a recipient of the US Medal of Honor during the Second World War and a recipient of the Distinguished Service Cross during the Second Gulf War. But although some have called the M10 a light tank, and it clearly looks like a tank, the US Army does not want you to call it a tank. They would like you to please call it a combat vehicle or an infantry assault vehicle. Why? Because of its intended mission and the role it is supposed to play in combat. The primary role of the M10 Booker is to support infantry in combat by destroying enemy fortifications and fire positions. Its secondary role is to provide protection against enemy armored vehicles. It's meant to fill the gap in the requirements that are served by the M1 Abrams main battle tank and the Stryker hybrid armored personnel carrier/infantry fighting vehicle. That's why the US Army prefers to avoid calling it a light tank, although many still aren't convinced by this reasoning. Historically, there have been many types of tanks with many types of missions that don't always primarily involve going up against enemy main battle tanks. Built by General Dynamics, the M10 Booker has a crew of 4 and weighs around 42 tons. It carries a 105mm tank gun, 2 machine guns, and is powered by a 1070 horsepower diesel engine, which can push it to speeds of 72 km per hour. Like the M1 Abrams, the Booker does not use an auto-loader, storing ammunition separately for the safety of the crew. Since its weight is 40% lower than that of an M1 Abrams main battle tank, 2 M10 Booker combat vehicles can be transported by a C-17 Globemaster III heavy lifter. This also means it can be inducted into combat faster to support infantry. The US Army plans for the M10 battalions to be division-level assets, with commanders being able to decide the deployment of the vehicles among their infantry brigade combat teams. The first of the M10 Booker vehicles will be inducted into the 82nd Airborne Division, which includes 3 infantry brigade combat teams. An M10 battalion is expected to have a strength of 42 Booker combat vehicles. Although the current order for the M10 Booker is looking at up to 96 combat vehicles at a cost of $1.14 billion, the US Army is planning to eventually acquire more than 500 of these tanks.